Hi everyone, so today I have come up with a new topic which is skin and its normal histology, because when I was looking through the INA questions again, I found that they asked like 2 or 3 derm ka questions which also had path ka correlation. So I thought if I start with normal histology in skin, I can gradually progress to other topics which are important like pemphigus vulgaris, bullous pemphigoid and multiple other topics like that. So let's start with skin normal histology. So what do we see here? So right now let's start. So there are 5 layers in skin, but we mostly say that there are 4 layers initially, which is straight. They are the constant layers. That's the stratum corneum, which is the uppermost layer, which is the stratum corneum, then followed by stratum granulosum, which is the granular layer, stratum spinosum, which is the squamous cell layer, and stratum basalis, which is the basal cell layer. Also, you see stratum lucidum in palms and soles, which is usually occurring below the stratum corneum. So this is where you see stratum lucidum in palms and soles. So we'll see the histodiagram right now, microscopy. So as I explained before, this layer is the stratum corneum, right? And so this picture is better. So again, I'll show it here. This is the stratum corneum, followed by this granular layer, which you see, which is more basophilic like this. This layer is the stratum granulosum. This entire layer is the stratum spinosum, and if you see, there is a basal layer of cells. This is the stratum basale. So these are the components of the epidermis, followed by dermis and subcutis. So whenever we get a punch biopsy from the skin, that is what we see. So this is the epidermis and this is the dermis. Okay, so as explained, this is the epidermis followed by the dermis, which will have blood vessels and other stroma, followed by, after dermis we see subcutis. So this is the subcutaneous tissue. So this is the dermis again. So the skin histology has epidermis, dermis and subcutis. So today we'll be only discussing epidermis. So coming to the first layer, which is the stratum corneum. So stratum corneum, one of the most important thing here is it is an anucleate layer. Anucleate means no nucleus. So if you see here, they are just streaks of keratin. There is no nucleus. So how do a nucleus looks like? It will be more basophilic. More basophilic, like here, here. But if you see, I'll show this area, there is no nucleus. So it's an anucleate layer. Normally, stratum corneum is an anucleate layer. It's more eosinophilic and it is arranged in vertical stacks like this. Right? So, stratum corneum. Followed by, so these are a few conditions that we see, which is hyperkeratosis. Hyperkeratosis means increased in the thickness of stratum corneum. So here it's increased, right? So this is stratum corneum and it is increased thickness, which comes under hyperkeratosis. So this is an enlarged hypoper view, as you can see. The complete layer, it's anucleate, right? And this is hyperkeratosis. And what does parakeratosis mean? So if you see nucleus like this, you see nucleus like this on the layer, like this, in stratum corneum, that is when it is known as parakeratosis. So this is nucleus in stratum corneum. Is known as parakeratosis. Coming to the next one, which is stratum granulosum. So stratum granulosum, the most common or the most important MCQ that usually comes from here is that it has keratohyalin granules. So that is why those granules give it the name of granulosum, and it is usually 1 to 3 cells thick, and it forms filaggrin. It forms interfibrillary matrix, filaggrin and marginal band. So let's differentiate between soft keratin and hard keratin. So this is one concept that I want you guys to understand, that in soft keratin you will have soft flexible tonofibrils, and because of this enzyme acts on it and this gets desquamated, which means it gets removed. However, there is hard keratin C, which is formed from the interfibrillary filaggrin and marginal band, and this constitutes our hair and nails, and that is why they don't desquamate with enzymatic effect. That is why they need periodic cutting, right? So I was telling, so similarly as there is hyperkeratosis and parakeratosis, there is also hypergranulosis. That is when the granular layer thickness is increased. So I had told before that the granular layer thickness is usually 1 to 3 cell thick. So if you can see, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. More than 5 layers, right? So this is hypergranulosis, and as you can see, there are keratinocytes, and then they have granules inside. The small purple dots that you see, they are granules, and this is the hypergranulosis that you usually see. Followed by what is acanthosis? When the entire epidermis increases in the thickness, that is when we say that it is acanthosis. So here you see acanthosis. Actually in this slide you can see multiple findings. One is hyperkeratosis, hypergranulosis and acanthosis. Okay, coming to the second last layer, which is the stratum spinosum, which is 5 to 10 layers thick, and here we find an interesting finding, which is desmosome. So this is how, assuming this is how keratinocytes look like, and then they have a nucleus. So the intercellular bridges between them, which connect each other, are known as desmosomes, and there are tonofilaments which are seen in the cytoplasm of keratinocytes, which is present in stratum spinosum. Also, there is two more components that you need to learn from stratum spinosum is the presence of desmoglein 1 and desmoglein 3. So desmogleins and desmoplackins are multiple colons or something that you see in stratum spinosum, and you can see that desmoglein is usually present beneath the stratum corneum keratinocytes. So let me show you the picture here. So this is the stratum corneum. Beneath this is where we see desmoglein 1. However, desmoglein 3 is seen in the suprabasal keratinocyte. So this is a basal layer. So above this is where we see desmoglein 3. So the location of desmoglein in 1 and 3 is very important, which you will eventually understand when further topics come in dermatopathology. Coming to stratum basalis, it's again a single layer. It contains melanin, and it is attached to the subepidermal basement membrane via hemidesmosomes. So hemidesmosomes also, their importance will come in the further classes. So the basal layer is attached to the subepidermal basement membrane by hemidesmosomes, and the keratin attached here by intercellular bridges, which are desmosomes. So now these are the high yield questions that you are supposed to remember. So melanocyte is usually present in the basal layer and is stained by S100. This is the IHC for melanocytes. And Merkel cells. Merkel cells, they usually secrete neuropeptides, which is vasoactive intestinal peptide, calcitonin, gene-related peptides, serotonin and substance P. Again, they are seen in the basal layer and they stain by CK20. And Langerhans cells. So in the previous topic that I had taught, I was telling about giant cells, which are known as Langerhans giant cells. So Langerhans are giant cells which are seen in TB, and Langerhans are dendritic antigen presenting cells in the suprabasal epidermis. So when you see Langerhans cells, you should always go back to skin, and Langerhans is giant cell in tuberculosis. Again, so the electron microscopy, it appears as Burbeck granules. They have a tennis racket appearance and they stain with CD1A. So this is important. S100 for melanocyte, Merkel cell CK20, Langerhans cell CD1A, and the presence of Burbeck granules, tennis racket appearance. Again, so this has been a multiple repeated question, which is malphigian layer, which is seen in stratum basi with stratum spinosum. Combined, this is known as malphigian layer. It's extremely important, has been asked multiple times in NEET and I think once in INI. Again, so the next one is stratum lucidum, and you see elidin in them. That's why they give a translucent pale color to that layer, which is present where? Below the stratum cornea. Again, the last one is lamellar bodies, also known as membrane coating granules, keratinosomes, Odlin bodies. They are usually seen in the keratinocytes and skin, and also there is one more place where you see this, which is type 2 alveolar cells in the lung. They are seen initially in stratum spinosum and they go over to stratum granulosum. So the last slide is hemidesmosomes. Hemidesmosomes, which attach a basal layer to the basement membrane. It is hemidesmosomes, and there is bullous pemphigoid antigen 1, plectin, bullous pemphigoid antigen 2, integrin alpha 6, beta 4. And these are all the components that we see in hemidesmosomes. I hope you understand everything. Thank you.